Dennis and Casper here with Submission Radio Fight Magazine with the president, the man of the hour here in Melbourne, Dana White. Dana, welcome to Melbourne. Let's quickly talk about one thing that everybody's talking about, the weigh-ins. Ronda Rousey and Holm. What was your reaction when you saw what happened up there? Because people did not expect that.
Me neither. I didn't see that coming. Obviously, if I saw that coming, that wouldn't have happened. But, you know, Ronda is intense, man, and Holly didn't back down. And one thing that you have to understand, going into big fights like this, mental warfare is definitely on, you know. Conor McGregor, one of the best ever at mental warfare. Joanna Jedrzejczyk, one of the best ever at mental warfare. And Ronda and Holly had a little bit going on today.
Do you think it's even more surprising, just given their past, and by that I mean there really isn't one? It's not like Betch Correia where they were really at each other's throats, or at least, you know, Betch was. But with Holm and Ronda Rousey, they were fairly, I guess, tame in the build-up. Is that something that shocked you even more?
Yeah, well, I guess Ronda, what Ronda had said, she said, "I'm so sick of your fake sweet act that you're putting on," and you know, who knows, man? You know, only they know what's going on in their heads. So.
Let me ask you this, though. A lot of people, you know, conspiracy theorists are saying, is this a last-minute push, a last-ditch effort to sort of get ticket sales up? Did someone say something to Ronda? Did she sort of, because she's a smart girl, did she go backstage and say, you know what, let's drum up some interest? What's your take on that?
Well, I can tell you this. That never happens. We never tell people to go do anything. If you look at the falling outs I've had with fighters over the years, don't you think that fighters would come out and say, they told us to go do this and they tell us to go do that? We don't tell the fighters to do anything. There's no push to sell tickets. 2 women are selling over 50,000 tickets here, and this thing's trending as one of the biggest pay-per-views we've ever done, let alone this year. So, yeah, there's no push to go out and do anything fake. We don't ever do things like that. And if we did, you'd have heard about it by now, believe me.
Well, just curious. Obviously, it did look like maybe Holly got a little bit too close with her fist, and that's how it all began. You were right there. You had the best seat in the house.
Yeah.
How did it happen, and will there be any repercussions for it, or is it just something that was close?
Ronda went after her, and it seemed like they were jockeying for position either on the outside or whatever, and then Holly's hand was here, and then Holly just hit her. And you know, and then it was on. But no, there's no. It's my job to make sure that that doesn't happen and that they don't put their hands on each other. And apparently, I didn't do my job today. So, yeah.
Well, it's a good thing that you were there, though. You mentioned that the arena is going to be filled with over 50,000 people. Can you give us a bit of insight? How are the ticket sales doing? You guys had some cheaper seats released, I believe around about the $70 mark. Have they given you a last sort of minute boost? And are we looking to break the record against UFC 129? Are we looking to do possibly 60,000?
Yeah, the only thing that was left, that's been left, are the cheap seats. So cheap seats are left. We'll see how the walk-up does. This event, no matter where we end up, is already a huge success.
It's interesting because you mentioned that you borrowed some lights from Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
It's great to see that she's a fan of the UFC and she's so giving. How much does a show like this, you know, how difficult is it to put together? Because obviously it looks a lot like a love letter to the MMA fans here as a gift for them because it's legal and everybody's looking forward to the show. But when it comes to getting money back on a show like this, is it difficult because there are just so many things that go into it? The big screens, the sound, the lighting, Taylor Swift, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that we do is when we put on an event, we make sure that everybody has a good experience, whether you're watching it at home or in the arena. And especially when we come to stadiums. When we come to stadiums, we want to make it feel like you're inside a smaller arena, you're not in a massive stadium and you can't see. We literally have every LED in the country here in this building right now, and had to borrow some from Taylor Swift. So, yeah, it's... I know Melbourne is a huge sports town, and you guys have seen tons of events in this stadium. Not like what you're going to see tomorrow. It's going to be completely different than anybody's ever seen.
We're going to go home, and there's going to be no lights at home. You guys stole all the LEDs.
True, we really did.
I'm just wondering, comparing this to, say, a lot of people talking about Croke Park, Conor McGregor. You know, what is one of the difficulties of going and doing Croke Park and doing Ireland and doing a big stadium show? Obviously, with the pay-per-view market, if people over there are, you know, staying up till 4:30, you know, is that a difficult thing?
No. The difficult thing about doing Croke Park is it's open to the outdoors, and Ireland isn't the best weather in the world, you know, but here, you know, we can close the roof. So Croke Park has, more than that too, has a lot of challenges. The neighborhood, apparently Garth Brooks sold out 7 nights there, and the neighborhood was trying to make him shut down at a certain time, so he yanked all 7 nights and never even went there.
Wow.
Yeah, and sold out 7 nights in a row. So we have a lot of challenges for Croke Park, but we want to make it happen if Conor wins.
Let's talk about UFC 193 for a second. And one fight that hasn't been getting as much attention as it really should, the Uriah Hall Robert Whittaker fight. Now, Robert is a fighter that is pretty big in Australia, but internationally not known as well. Do you see this as a coming out party for Robert Whittaker? And also, a lot of international fans not really giving him much of a chance, but a lot of Australian fans think he will be beating Uriah Hall.
People are crazy if they don't think Robert Whittaker can win this fight. Actually, when you break this fight down, Robert Whittaker is the busier, more well-rounded guy. Uriah Hall is explosive, fast. He's got that knockout power with his feet and his hands, but he doesn't always let it go. He needs to do what he did in the Mousasi fight to try to win this fight against Whittaker, who will be the more aggressive fighter, 100% moving forward, throwing tons of punches. I think Robert Whittaker is one of the best up-and-coming fighters in the sport right now.
Another fighter on the card, and one that has been around for a long time, is Mark Hunt. He recently released his book that spoke about his life. It was crazy to see what he's been through. Have you had a chance to look at his book? Or has anybody told you anything from the book yet? Because his journey has been remarkable.
Yeah, I have not read the book. I know he had a hard upbringing. And he's an old school tough guy, man. His last fight with Silva was the greatest heavyweight fight that I've ever seen, and I actually have a really good working rapport with him. I like him. I respect him as a fighter and as a human being.
Main event is Ronda Rousey versus Holm, but the original main event was actually going to be Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit. Injury forced that fight off the card. Do you see that almost as a blessing in disguise, given that Ronda, she's so media friendly, you've got all the media coming out that possibly wouldn't have necessarily come out. Everybody wants a piece of it, and it's good for MMA here in Australia.
Yeah, obviously it worked out. Once Robbie and Condit fell off the card, we knew we had to come. We had to come with something strong. So we went to Ronda. We went to our go-to girl, and she wanted to do it. And then it made sense to build this badass women's card with her and Joanna, and yeah, it all worked out.
Well, speaking of go-to girls, and you just mentioned Joanna, we were talking with her, and she mentioned that possibly she'd like to take a break till UFC 200. We're also talking to Claudia Gadelha, who wants to get in there as soon as possible at the start of next year and fight her. If Joanna does ask you for a break till UFC 200, would you give it to her? And also, would that mean Claudia would have to take another fight at the start of next year?
I don't know. We'll see how this thing plays out. One of the tough parts in being a UFC champion is all the obligations that are put on you, and not just continually fighting, but media obligations and sponsorship obligations and all the things that go along with it. It's very hard to be a UFC champion.
Are you amazed at the way Joanna sort of carried, I wouldn't say carried the strawweight division, but just brought a lot of interest to it and just become such a star, considering that English isn't her first language? Ronda Rousey was talking in the scrum before about how if she was to retire or something was going to happen, knock on wood, she'd feel safe knowing that Joanna's here to sort of take over the women's fighting and the division.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. She has burst onto the scene and become a huge star, and not just among the fans, but fighters are huge fans of Joanna. So yeah, I was just saying this today. We have two women's divisions, 115 and 135, and we literally have the two baddest, nastiest women in the world as champions.
Talking to Julianna Pena, she's down here obviously for the fights as well. If Ronda Rousey does take this break to UFC 200, is she the next person that you're looking to give the title shot to? Or is it still depending on this whole Cyborg situation? Is Cyborg still in rotation here? Is she still a possibility? Because it does look like Julianna believes that she could be the next person in line here.
Well, Cyborg has a fight coming up, and she's going to try to make 140 pounds. And if she does and wins that fight, then she's going to try to make 135. So we'll see how that goes. No doubt about it that Julianna Pena is working her way up the ladder, and so is Amanda. So Amanda, Kat, Miesha, and Julianna.
What do you want to see? Obviously, they're all very close together. What do you look for out of these girls? Do you want to see someone really go for it? Do you want to see somebody really call it out? Because Julianna, she said she's come here to ruffle feathers. For example, if she tries to jump into the ring after the fight or something like that. Is that what you look for? Somebody that's really going for it?
I'm not really looking for anybody to jump into the ring after, but yeah, I want somebody that wants it. Miesha Tate is talking about retiring right now. In this sport, when you start thinking about retiring, you should retire. Miesha probably should retire if that's what Miesha's thinking right now. It's probably a good idea. But I want girls that, these women think they know, they think they want that title, you know, but they have no idea what it takes to really have that title and what it means to be a champion and how hard it is to carry it. And like Joanna telling you, you know, I think I want some time off after this fight because the obligations are hard and very few people can really do it.
Let's talk about Reebok. Obviously, we spoke to Matt O'Toole just before, the president of Reebok. You guys are doing a big expansion, or not you necessarily, but UFC and Reebok doing a big expansion in Australia. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you know, the Reebok thing has been very successful for them, and for us too. You know, I know there's been a lot of whatever about Reebok. Reebok looks good. It looks good on the fighters. It cleaned everything up. I'm so glad that the banners are gone and you know, just the collage of names and clothing that used to be in here, and you know, this thing is still a work in progress. It's only going to get better as the deal goes on, and yeah, I'm really happy about it.
It seems like one of the key points of the Reebok deal was to get MMA and more specifically the UFC more in the mainstream, allow for advertising and more opportunities. Are you finding those effects are sort of being fruitful and happening already, or do you think they'll happen, you know, a little bit later down the track? Are you feeling it already?
Yeah, it cleans the sport up and it makes it look more professional. You know, television networks are happier now because of the Reebok deal. It really did wonders for the sport and cleaning it up and making it look better and look more professional.
All right, well, Dana, we know you're busy. You have to jet off, so we appreciate your time, and we can't wait to see what happens at UFC 193. Thank you very much.